Broadcasting live from global headquarters at RP Enterprises in Greenwood, Missouri.
Stand by on this frequency.
After 22 years of entertaining FM radio listeners across the U.S., this man is the owner and executive producer of the award-winning Heartland Waterfowl on Sportsman's Channel, CEO and founder of Dumar Chemical Solutions, and the man behind the mic of Papa Ron Radio voiceovers and production. He's the man, the myth, the legend, a global icon, future Nobel Prize winner, and of course he paid me to say all this.
Really?
Literally. Welcome to the Papa Ron Podcast. Here's your host, Ronnie Phillips.
We're back with episode 25 of the Papa Ron Podcast, and again, I got to apologize. Had to take a little bit of a break because the darn hunting season is getting in the way of the things that I like to do here at RP Global Headquarters. Seriously, though, we apologize. Hope that you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Ours was wonderful, although mine was spent on the road as we were out in Kansas filming another episode of Heartland Waterfowl, and so the season is off to a great start, but that's not why you're tuning in today. You're tuning in to find out what is next on the Papa Ron Podcast, and I'm really excited about this week's guest because I've been watching him from afar and got a lot of respect for what he's done. In fact, he's quite a bit younger than I am, but even in his short time here on this earth has been able to accomplish a lot of things. Welcome to episode 25 of the Papa Ron Podcast, Stephen McBEE. How are you, pal?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you having me out in the studio. This is something I've been looking forward to, especially since we started talking about, what this entire podcast is about. It's awesome.
Thank you. I saw that when you came in through the front door of RP Enterprises Global Headquarters, you came through the toy division first, right? And so I'm sorry that the people who work in the toy department, they're busy trying out new toys. And actually, I'm joking. I'm talking about my kids who are up there playing. Because when you walk in the front room of my house, it looks like Romper Room. Anyway, I digress. Jillian, unfortunately, couldn't be here tonight. She texted me and said that she was trying to rally throughout the day, but is a little bit under the weather and wasn't going to be able to make it. So, but thank you for being here. I know it's a little bit of a trip because you're from northern Missouri, right?
Yeah, I'm from a small town called Gallatin. It's not even a map dot.
I need to make this comment too, because I would be remiss if I didn't mention a mutual friend in Chuck Weldon.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck has been a dear friend of mine for probably since I moved to Kansas City in 2003, I believe. He was doing part-time at KFKF and I was doing nights over at Q104. And I think he was filling in doing nights or something. Anyway, we crossed paths, got to know each other and been friends ever since. And then he helped me with getting on there up in KMZU in Carrollton, where I do the night show now, recorded from RP Global Headquarters. Anyway, Chuck was who was able to bring us together, right? Mm-hmm. So I reached out to Chuck because I'd been following you on social media and seeing everything that you had been doing. And I was like, you know what? He might be someone that would be good to have on the show. And so I texted him and said, Stephen McBEE, right? And he's like, well, yeah. Like, duh, Ronnie. And I said, okay, well, would you mind reaching out to him? I think I'd like to have him on the podcast. And he was like, yeah, no problem. And then you were quickly, returned the call and was willing to jump in. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
really
I'm happy to be here. And, Chuck is a guy that lives right down the road from us. Farms, literally right next door to our farms. He's a lot better farmer than us. He's probably the best farmer in the county. I've told him that over and over.
Is that right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You drive by his fields and you drive by ours. And
why is that?
He just knows what he's doing. He's been at it for a while, and he's got it down to a science.
He's got a horseshoe up his rear is what you're telling me, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Now, that farming, though, that he does is kind of keeping him from getting out there and shooting the big deer that he used to shoot, though. And you guys have taken some massive deer on your property this year. What, like 3 that I've seen, or is there 4 that have been pushing 200?
Yeah, so we've got 4 that we've killed that are over 180 inches, and then several in the 160 to 170 inch range that were killed this year. Funny story, actually. So Chuck has been farming. He hasn't been hunting. And he called me one day. It was actually about this podcast. And I was asking him, I was like, do you have any good deer on trail camera? And he's like, man, I don't have anything. And Cole's farm and Chuck's farm literally border each other. I'm like, are you sure you don't have like a really massive deer with a lot of points, like mid 190s? And he's like, no, I haven't gotten him this year. And I'm like, he's about 100 yards from you, the border of our farms. That's really weird. He hasn't crossed over. We get off the call, and 10 minutes later, he sends me a picture of the deer. And he's like, it just showed up. He's like, I can't believe this. I better get in a deer stand.
Oh, my gosh.
He's still chasing that deer.
Really?
So, oh, yeah.
But is it sharing both properties?
Yeah. So, it's been split in time between my brother Cole's farm and Chuck's farm. And I guess it's TBD who ends up getting him on the ground.
They don't get that big being stupid.
No, they do not. No, they do not.
Well, we'll get more into the outdoors and a lot of different things. Of course, everyone probably, or not everyone, but many who are listening to this will probably want to know all the goofy stuff in the stuff that took place with Joe Millionaire. So we'll get into that as well. And then I also want to talk about entrepreneurship, because there's a lot of things that you've got going on in and around the metro that is pretty impressive. And so I guess the best thing to start, though, is where you're from. I always like to do that to kind of break the ice for people to kind of get an understanding of who you are and how you got to where you are today. You went to Fort Osage High School. Where did the passion for, was it the family business? Because I know your dad has done very well as a self-employed person. So where did this all kind of get started?
Yeah, so I went to Fort Osage, grew up in Independence, grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. Not only my dad, my grandpa on my mom's side of the family was extremely successful as an entrepreneur. And so I kind of had that in my blood ever since I was born and raised. I had my dad in one ear and my grandpa in the other telling me, you can either build your own dreams or work to build someone else's. And so that's just how my entire life has been built. I honestly never envisioned, I can't imagine working for anyone. It's just how I was born and raised. So just born with that passion, just because that's what I grew up with.
So after high school, what happens next?
So was a pretty good football player, was going to go down to Columbia, Missouri and play, and was invited to play in an all-star game. And I'd never been injured, so you know where this is going. So never in my entire career ever had a major injury, and I didn't really want to do this all-star game because it was happening in late June, and I was supposed to go down to Columbia in July. And the coaches down in Mizzou had told me, probably should not do this game. And if it wasn't for my buddies that were playing in it, were selected in it, we had a pretty good high school career, and so a couple of them were selected for it. And my head coach was actually the head coach of the all-star team. First play of the game, I'm out there and blow out my knee. And so that was really the first major smack that I had in life. I've had a lot since then, but that was the first one. And so that one shut me down pretty good. I was summer leading into college, and I was laying in bed in a straight leg brace after having surgery. And so that one
ACL or everything?
The ACL, meniscus.
Okay,
Yep. So it was thankfully didn't tear the other tendons or ligaments, but ACL, meniscus, and that one knocked me back. I was flying pretty high whenever that happened, and all of a sudden my life kind of got flipped upside down. Ended up not wanting to go down to Mizzou. I was done with football. I was like, I will never do anything that puts me in a position to where I am decommissioned and laying in bed all day every day, because that was not good for me mentally.
Right.
So
what was the plan before the injury? You said to go to Missouri. Was that you were recruited by Pinkel then?
Yeah. So that would have been David Yost, the offensive coordinator there.
Yep.
And I was a quarterback, but I was not going to go play quarterback. I was more of an athlete. So it was probably going to be wide receiver or safety is what they were looking at for me. I didn't have the great mechanics that a quarterback has. And so that's what I was going down there to play. And so football was really my identity throughout high school and really growing up. And so to get that kind of groundbreaking moment where, my entire life was shaken up in literally one play, the first play of the game, that was a major ordeal for me. I ended up going to William Jewell that fall and then transferred to UCM and got my undergrad and my MBA from UCM.
Okay, but back up just a little bit. So you blow out your knee. Were they going to give you a scholarship?
Yeah, so that's what we were looking at. It was going to be preferred walk-on first year. By the time they recruited me, I was a late recruit. And by the time I was going to go into my second year, they had scholarship waiting for me. So it was preferred
until
walk-on.
The injury.
Yeah, correct.
And then they took it off the table after that?
Correct.
So did they give you any, or let me ask this then. Was there any possibility of playing football again, aside from the mental part that you just discussed?
I'd have been a walk-on. Like after that, it was
anywhere.
No, I mean, I had other offers once I got injured to lower level schools.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Division I AA, and then pretty solid Division II schools as well.
But
so
if it wasn't D1, you weren't interested.
No, I wasn't. It just wasn't worth. I knew what was going to go into it. Like, your life is that sport for 4 years straight, and I had other aspirations as well. So to me, it was risk versus reward. You know, I wasn't going to go beat up my body and have to take 4 years away from everything if it wasn't for going out in a Division I stadium.
Well, you say that now with very convicted, like, that you had other aspirations, but that decision couldn't have come easy because, as you mentioned earlier in this conversation, it was your identity. So how did you navigate through to come to that decision?
It was really, and I remember it pretty vividly. It was 4th of July. So I had surgery June 28th. And the 4th of July, I was sitting in bed looking out the window, and there was a party that my parents were throwing. A lot of my buddies came over. We had a lot of mutual friends between my brothers and I, and they were all outside having, fun with fireworks. And I was literally laying in bed, like with my knee propped up on a pillow, and I couldn't move. And I'm just looking out the window. And I'm like, this is awful. Yeah. Like, this is horrible. And I was in when I say I was depressed, I mean, I laid in bed the entire summer, and that was supposed to be like, the going away to college summer. So all of my buddies were going on these trips,
Right.
And so laying in bed every single day really, really affected me. And so even though I loved football and my identity was football at the time, I realized for my own mental health, I could never be in a position to where an injury like that would keep me decommissioned. Did
you lean on any others, like any other people in your circle or family or friends to come to that conclusion?
Absolutely. So I had my mom there taking care of me, and then I had a girlfriend at the time. We dated for a while, actually dated for 7 years, and I think we were 4 or 5 years into dating at that time. And between her and my mom, thank God I had them, because they stayed by my side the entire time. And I was a miserable person at that time. Like, I was depressed, upset, angry, confused, like every emotion mixed into one. And I just lay there all day and complain and, ask why me. And it was a really, really tough time. Without those two, I don't think I could have gotten through it.
So where did you say you went? You went to
William Jewell.
Jewell.
Yeah, for the first year, and then transferred to UCM.
Okay.
Yep.
Why did you transfer?
Honestly, because I was still a little lost at the time. So I went to William Jewell just, on a whim, just because it was close by, and I was on crutches, which is about the worst spot to ever go to a spot when you're on crutches, because it sits at the top of a hill. Okay. All the parking's down below. But I just went there because it was close, and I wanted to still live at home while I was healing up and going to physical therapy, and then transferred to UCM to try and live out the college life.
Good for you.
Yeah, so that was the original plan. But then I moved up to the farm the semester that I started going to UCM, and so I literally would commute from Gallatin, Missouri to my college class. I spent more time on the road than I did in class.
Really?
And I never spent one single night in Warrensburg. Not one.
And how many years?
Ended up being 4.5. Yeah.
You drove from Gallatin to Warrensburg every day?
Yep, for like one class. So I'd spend an hour and a half driving each way, and then only like 45 to 50 minutes in class.
Did you ever think while you were doing that, like, this is dumb? What am I doing?
Yeah, the entire time. The entire time, really. The farming operation was really just starting to take off, as well as some of our other business ventures. And I was working full-time and then still going to school. And so really, I'd poured my heart and soul into business. So that was kind of shaping my new identity after the sports thing. And so that was kind of where my focus was. And so, I wasn't too concerned at that time, where I was really diving into the business. And I was like, I think I can take this on. I think this can become my new identity. So I didn't give a care in the world about going down to Warrensburg to party or live out the college life.
Yeah.
So
there had to have been something business-wise, that kind of had to have inspired you to put all of the shit from the past behind you. I'm guessing. I guess where I'm going with this is that once you've decided that you're going to go to William Jewell and you start kind of just getting to the everyday motion of going to school, you're probably just going through the motions, right? Are you at that? I mean, how quickly is it after this injury and you going to college, does the whole entrepreneur bug start to really creep in?
I would say, so injury happened in late June. It really wasn't until that next February that I started really feeling like my life was getting
The
back
next
on track.
February? So
Yeah.
just a few months later.
Yeah, so
I mean, it happened in June, you said, right?
Yeah, so it was about 8 months later.
Okay.
And it all
That was quicker than I thought.
It all started with fitness. Like, I started working out. Obviously I lifted weights during football, but I didn't really care about nutrition or anything. Like I was going to McDonald's and just eating out with friends. I didn't give a crap about it.
Yeah.
And then starting in February, I just started going to the gym and started kind of really reinventing myself and wanting to get more into the nutritional aspect, see how I could improve my life, my fitness, and then really started getting into, some of these podcasts that they truly helped my life out. I mean, you think about the Andy Frisellas of the world, the Ed Milet's. I mean,
Wow.
I was just pouring, I didn't listen to music then, and I still really don't listen to a whole lot of music. Whenever I'm in a truck driving around, I'm listening to self-improvement podcasts.
Really?
Nonstop.
I love that. So who else you listen to?
So
Papa Ron radio show. I know that.
of course, absolutely.
I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I love Ed Milet, Andy Frisella, Alex Hormozy. Those three definitely my top ones. But really, I just am a lover of anything and everything self-improvement. I'm reading self-improvement books every morning. I'm trying to because I have a very fragile mentality. And so I don't want to do anything that can rock the boat. And really the injury is what showed me how fragile that can be. And so if I want to spend as much time getting my mind right, feeling like I'm preparing myself every single morning, getting the right, thoughts, ideas in my head before I go out and take on the world. Because in the world of entrepreneurship, as you well know, there's so many fires that you have to deal with, so many crises you have to deal with. If your mind's not in the right state, whenever you get hit with one of those, it's a bad deal.
Yeah, for sure. I'm still crawling out of that.
Yeah.
I think, how old are you?
I'm 28. Yeah,
Wow.
just turned 28.
Wow. So you kind of learned at a very young age, that you've got to be focused. You really got to have tunnel vision.
Yeah.
In understanding the importance of being a product of your environment.
Absolutely. Thankfully,
was that always that way, even through high school, or were you just the typical high school kid who partied after football games on Friday night? And then, what was?
So I never partied. Like I didn't touch alcohol till I was 22 years old. My family was very, very strict. Every single weekend we were ate up with going up to the farm. So we'd finish a football game. We'd watch film right after the game until about midnight or 12:30. And then my brother and I would take off to the farm and get up there about 2 a.m. And if it was hunting season, we'd be hunting first thing in the morning. If it was off season, we were either doing farm work, deer preparation work, any type of work we could get our hands on. We were ate up with that. And so the hard work side of me has always been there. But as far as the self-improvement side and the mental state of health and really focusing on my mental health, that didn't come till after the injury.
Okay. Wow. Very, very interesting. All right. So you get to UCM and then you've got 1 year there, or I can't remember how many years you spent at UCM.
4.5 at UCM. So got my undergrad and my MBA there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep.
And then what did you, I guess let me back up a little bit, because I was talking about, you had this trauma, I'll call it, because your football was your identity.
Mm-hmm.
It was about 8 months later that you really started getting back into the groove of things. Was there a business opportunity that presented itself, or was there something that your family was bringing you in on, that you were going to get a piece of the family pie or the family business? What happened there?
So it was really the farming entity that took off. So we'd always farmed. We farmed since 2005. We were a 2,500 acre farmer up until that time. And really when I immersed myself fully into the farming operation, my dad and I had sat around and talked about what our goals for the operation was going to be. And we really felt like it was a time that we could expand the operation, because it was it's as bad as a market as it could be for farming during that time. That would have been 2015. Yeah, 2014.
Okay.
Yeah, 2014, 2015. And so the market was horrible for farming. Everyone was going under, and we're looking at it as an opportunity to capture market share if we got out there and really busted it. And so we talked about what could come of that, how we could grow to become one of the largest operations in the state of Missouri. And that became like my new North Star. And I was like, I'm going to chase that with everything I've got, shape my identity around that. And so I didn't sleep. I was like so focused on trying to build our farming operation to what I thought it could be. And so that whole idea of reshaping my identity around entrepreneurship and, the fitness side kind of took place right around then.
Were you, so you're what, 21, 22 around that time when all of this is kind of taking place?
Yeah, I'd have been, 20. Yeah.
Okay. How experienced of a farmer are you at that time?
Not experienced at
That's
all.
okay. So that's where I'm going with this. And your dad just is kind of dabbling with it because his background's in construction, right?
Correct. Yeah. So we're a first generation farmer. So we were learning by trial and fire and mistakes and tripping all over ourselves. I mean, we couldn't have made more mistakes than we did in the early years. We still make mistakes today. I mean, farming is something that takes like a generation or two to really grasp and understand. And like I said, we've only been doing it since 2005. So, yeah. To do it to the level of what you're wanting to do it, though, you had to have had some sort of tutelage from somewhere. Were you taking any kind of farming classes through college, or was there other people, like was there the Chuck Weldons of the world that you were leaning on, getting, friendly advice from? Who were you seeking out to get kind of guidance? Oh, yeah. I mean, we were going to, there's different ag classes that you can go to, ag trainings, and we were going to those nonstop. I mean, we're ate up with the research side of things and not being scared to try new methods, new techniques, and literally just pouring over the internet trying to learn those things. Mm-hmm. And then we had a guy that we're still really good friends with to this day named Derry Wright. He's a large-scale farmer around here. Mm-hmm. And so he really took us under his wing, taught us a lot about large-scale farming. And so we took what he was doing here in the Independence up through Richmond area and moved it up to our Gallatin area.
Wow. And when you say we, who's we?
My dad and I.
Just you two?
Yeah, so we were spearheading the operation. Obviously, we had operators in the field, but as far as, the partners that are making every single decision, it was my dad and I every single day.
Wow. Okay. And so that has been the main focus. McBEE Farms has been pretty much your identity from the beginning. I mean, I know you've dabbled in other things. We're going to get into that, but that's where it kind of all started.
Yeah, that's where it all started.
Wow.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's, I had a question about, I'm trying to think where I was at with this. So when was the time that you realized that, like, hey, even though we buy all of this land, we got all of this equipment, and at that time, there's an opportunity to be successful. When did you have your real first, like, reality moment? Like, ooh, it's not a given every single year.
The first year.
The first year was tough, huh?
Yeah, and every year since. I mean, farming kicks your butt every single year.
Why did you want to do that?
I don't know, because if I look at it nowadays from just a margin perspective or an industry perspective, it's about the worst possible industry you could get into. But there's something so rewarding about farming. It's almost innately in every single person's blood. And it seems like, we have bankers come up to talk about our other businesses and whatnot, and all they want to do is travel around the farm, see the cows. Yeah. And, it's just kind of got this cool, I don't know if it's bred into the genetics of who we are, but it's just always been something that I've wanted to do. Okay. And so from the time I was growing up, again, we were deer hunting. So we were planting food plots. We were taking care of the ground to a much lesser scale. Sure. But we fell in love with that work. And so it's been in me since I was young.
When do you become a helicopter pilot?
So funny story, actually. This was all like right around the same time that I was reinventing myself, and
which again is right after the injury, right?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So this was 20 to 22, and I was deathly afraid of commercial flights. I still don't like them, but I was deathly afraid. Like I would be shaking. Old women sitting next to me would be like, "Honey, do I need to hold your hand?" Like if we
really?
Yeah, it was a bad deal. And so listening to all these podcasts, and I kept hearing people talk about, well, you have to find your biggest fear and you got to run right into it and just face it.
Wow.
And so I was like, man, I'm so scared to fly. It was horrible. I hated flying. And so I was like, what would be my biggest fear to face right now? And I was like, I want to become a pilot. And then not only that, I want to become a helicopter pilot because it's even tougher than a fixed wing pilot. And so found the nearest trainer and started doing it. It was actually in Excelsior Springs is where I started training for that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And how long did you do that? You obviously started off, I would imagine, doing the fixed wing stuff, and then then or did you do?
No, I was
really.
Yeah, I was a helicopter pilot from the beginning.
Wow.
Yeah, and I don't know. Like the first time I took control of the controls in a helicopter, we were doing 360s. Like the first thing you do is you try to hover, and you think it's like such a simple technique. And the minute your CFI hands you over the cyclic and collective, which is your controls, you literally just start doing 360s. You have no control. You feel like you're going to die. It's a crazy feeling. And you do that for about 20 hours straight where you're like, I will never be a pilot. There's no way I will get this. And then at like hour 21, like you lift off the ground and it's just like stable. It's just all muscle memory. It's weird.
Okay. How many hours are minimum before you get, do you have to get before you do? I'm guessing it's like a fixed wing. My dad is a flight instructor, and I'm actually, before COVID, was doing getting for my private license. So I know a little bit about this kind of stuff, not anything about helicopter though. So how many hours do you have to do minimum before you do a ride along to get or do they do it that same way as they do with the fix?
They do. Yeah. You have to do a check ride to officially become a pilot. So minimum is 40 hours of flight time. But most helicopter pilots are 60-ish. I think I was at like 63.
Okay.
Yep.
And then do you do a solo or you do a cross country? Or
yeah, you do a solo and a cross country before you do your check ride. And so that first solo is a pretty crazy feeling. You know, you're up there in the air by yourself, and there's no one to save you but you. And it's it's a good feeling though, because then you start to believe in yourself. And so that's something I didn't realize that would come from being a helicopter pilot, is you get this inner self-confidence that, you know, you're properly trained for this, you can handle this. And even though, it's a little scary, you can keep pushing forward. Yeah. And so it's a really, really good feeling.
And how long was your cross country?
My cross country, I went over to Illinois, so it was about a 3.5 hour flight.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And I know nothing about helicopters really, but just for those who might be listening and what were you flying?
So I'm in a Robinson R44 Raven 2. So it's a 4-man helicopter piston engine. So
that's really neat.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got that what year? Your license?
That'd have been 2018 is when I got my license.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So you utilize that license as it applies to your farming.
Correct.
Being able to kind of check out everything that's going on from the sky.
Yep, correct. So we fly it around the farm, check on the crops, check on the cattle. Originally, we were going to spray with the helicopter. That was our business purpose for buying the helicopter. And then the spray rig that we wanted to buy was certified in New Zealand. It had to go through a bunch of government certifications in the U.S., and to this day, it is still not certified in the U.S. So,
now it's just a toy.
It's just, basically. Yeah.
That's really cool. Do you get up? Do you use it quite a bit? Do you fly a lot?
Yeah, I do.
How often do you think you go up?
I probably go up.
Even this time of year?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just
I've seen the stuff you put up on Instagram. I mean, is the cab's not always enclosed, right? Or
yeah, you can take the doors off. So in the summer, I take the doors off. Right now, I keep the doors on, but it's fun, like flying down to downtown Kansas City, flying around the Plaza Lights right now. So I fly.
You've done that?
Oh yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, I do it all the time. It's a blast.
Dude, that is so cool.
Yeah,
that is really neat.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do this. Let's take a little bit of a break here.
Get up.
And when we come back, we're going to get into some of the entrepreneur ventures that you have. And then I want to get into Joe Millionaire. So I'm trying to drag this thing out as long as I can because I know people are wanting to hang on for the conversation of Joe Millionaire. But I want to get into some of the entrepreneur talk. It's coming up next with Stephen McBEE on the Papa Ron Podcast.
Attention.
You're listening to the Papa Ron Podcast. Get involved with the show.
Wow, really?
Ask questions and leave comments or complaints.
Woo! Nice.
Call or text 816-558-6389. That's 816-558-6389. Now back to the show. Here again, your host.
Yes!
Great.
Showtime. Ronnie Phillips.
Thank you for tuning in to episode 25 of the Papa Ron Podcast. It can be found on pretty much all podcast platforms. Video versions available on Spotify and on YouTube, so check that out. And if you would, do me a favor, share this experience that you have for those, especially if you've been around for the last 25 episodes. I'd love for you to spread the word so that we can kind of continue to build this thing. The Papa Ron Podcast can be found on all of your favorite social media platforms, be it Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Back with Stephen McBEE. All right, so farming is the first venture really when it comes into getting your fingers, digging your fingers into the entrepreneurial spirit. What happens next? When's the next thing that you start adding to your portfolio?
Yeah, so after farming, my brother Jesse and I wanted to get into some rental properties. So we started looking through what type of government loans we could get, being first-time investment buyers. And so we built up a rental portfolio. We've got 13 units. It was just a smaller rental portfolio. And so we did that when I was 23 is whenever we started buying up some rentals. And at the time, we were still able to buy them at a good deal. It's a good thing we aren't buying them now. That 13 would be like one small house at this time in the market.
Really?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
You're at the right place at the right time,
yeah,
huh?
Yeah, we were able to buy quite a few for really, really cheap and got them fixed up, and that was a good learning experience. We were doing all of the work 100% ourselves. That's what, a lot of people don't realize is we cut our teeth in the back-breaking work, the hard labor.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a good learning lesson. Taught me a lot about scaling business and knowing that I want to try to work smarter, not harder, because that is some tough stuff.
Well, the other part of that, you were talking about, when your first experience of entrepreneurship was farming and just the amount of time and labor that is involved with that for not much return.
Mm-hmm.
As far as, you got to ask yourself, what's your time worth, right?
Yes.
So it's not like you're not making money, but is it worth the time that you have invested is really what I'm coming down to. So where I was getting ready to go with this is that it's really cool that you're picking out these different ventures and kind of trying to scale and diversify your portfolio. But man, I would think that unless were they high-end apartments that you guys were doing? No.
Oh, no.
So, and the only reason I know this is because the first house I ever bought, I ended up moving on to another property and trying to rent this out. And it was the biggest headache of my life. Mm-hmm. It was stressful. I was threatened to be killed. I was trying to get him evicted, and trying to kick him out. And, it was a nightmare. And then once I finally got into my house that I had fixed up, it was destroyed. Yeah. What were you thinking? Yep. Was the juice worth the squeeze?
It was pretty rough, honestly, getting into it. Well, you listen to all these, I'm a podcast maniac. And so I was listening to all these podcasts and everyone was saying real estate. So I was like, I'm going to become a rental king here. Uh-huh. And, it's tougher than it sounds. It's not as easy as the podcast makes it sound. And
right.
So, yeah, Jesse and I were we were doing maintenance calls at the middle of the night. We were getting a call about a backed up sewage unit. And that was rough there for a while.
And it's just you guys. It's not like you have a management team that's taking care of all this for you.
No. Yeah, it was just us. And so our phones were blowing up. The worst horror stories come from those lower level rental units. It was rough.
Yeah. But it was also good learning experience, 100%, right?
Yeah.
Are you still involved in that space?
Yeah, I've still got the rental units. Okay. I've got actually a pretty decent sized portfolio now, up to about 25 units. But it's all, now I'm large enough to where I can hire out a management company.
Yes.
So thank God for that.
Good. Now you don't have to deal with taking that phone call in the middle of the night.
No,
right?
That's exactly right. Actually, my number, I haven't changed my cell phone number in, I think, since I first got a cell phone. And so every now and then I'll just get a random call.
Yeah.
And I don't answer any numbers I don't recognize, but
sure.
I'll listen to the voicemail. I'm like, yeah, this is one of the renters. They still have my cell phone from way back in the day.
Has it gotten better, or is it because that you are working with the low income type? And I'm not trying to speak disparagingly against those
absolutely.
who make a lower income. It's just, unfortunately, that was the situation that I had, was a low income family who was renting my house. And sometimes low income families have a tough time paying the bill on the time, So I guess ultimately what I'm trying to go, where I'm going with this is that, do you see it in waves based on the economy that we have? Was it like now, because there's this, times are getting a little bit tougher. Not that we're technically in a recession. Some will say that we are, some will say that we're not. I don't know. I think that we are. Do you see that it's kind of ebbs and flows?
So we've got some really good renters in there now that we've been they've been in there long term. I think each of the units has had a renter in there for over 2.5 years.
Oh, good.
Which is pretty good time. And so we've been pretty solid on collections. But early on it was rough because we were just trying to get people in there. We're like, we just need income. Just throw whoever's in there. We'll
trying to pay the note.
Yes.
And if, as long as their money's coming in from them, then you can apply it to your note.
Yep.
What did you learn about the vetting process in putting people in there?
There's a very, very good reason why you use third-party companies to send in these rental applications and do background checks on the potential renters, because everything seems great and fine whenever they say, oh, we'll just pay all cash. Here's our, they'll tell you what they've been making over the last couple months, and we throw them in there again, just trying to get some income coming in. Everything was fine and dandy for the first 3 months, and then all of a sudden, they're behind on payments. And
Same thing happened to me.
Yep. Then you have to try the eviction process, which God only knows that takes months.
Yes.
Especially now, since COVID, it is like, it's unbelievable. They can live there for free for like 2 years.
Yep.
It's wild. And then you still have to be making the bank payments. It's insane.
Did you run into that where people weren't making their payments because the government was basically telling them they don't have to?
We did not on our side, just because, again, we got some good renters in the door. But my dad has a pretty good sized rental portfolio, and he ran into it rough. Really? I mean, it was a bad deal. I mean, because they literally could just live there for free. And, the banks, they aren't letting you skip payments.
Right.
So, I mean, it's pretty insane.
Well, thank goodness that you didn't have to run into that too bad.
Yeah.
So then you get into the rental property business. What's next after that?
So next would have been 2020, started a meat stick and jerky brand. So focused around.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Apex Protein Snacks. So it's like a health-oriented meat stick. So if you go to your gas stations and you look at any of the jerky or meat sticks on the shelves, most of them have sugar levels that rival your Snickers bar or your Skittles, or they're horrible for you. And the meat that they use, it's like the leftovers of what's left after butchering these animals. And so I wanted to go into it and create a product that was actually healthy for you. It was a portable high protein snack. And so that's what I started researching, came up with formulations that worked, that tasted pretty solid and were low to no sugars. And so took that to the marketplace, and it's done really, really well.
How did you do that? I mean, that you just make it sound like it's so easy.
Oh, no, it's not.
It's not that easy. People are listening to this. They're like, what?
No, I'm not trying to glorify it or
No.
Yeah.
I don't think that you're glorifying it. I want to dive a little bit more deeper into it. I am an entrepreneur, or at least an aspiring one. I have that spirit. And so I know that it just isn't that easy.
Yep.
You talked about doing some research. You did some taste testing. You were able to find someone who can work with you on the manufacturing side and the packaging, and then went to market, So let's dive in a little deeper. How long from it being an initial idea to it actually going to market did it take?
So the first idea I had was in 2018, and we launched in November of 2020. So it was a 2-year turnaround time.
Okay.
And for every problem that you solve, the minute you solve that problem, there's 3 more waiting behind the door.
I believe it.
So it's just like, that's literally all entrepreneurship is. You just have to brace your mind to the fact that it is a grind and it is a race of perseverance. Like, who can outlast the longest is who wins in entrepreneurship. It really is. I mean, it is. And it's every single venture I've gone into now, even on the car wash side and trying to build out these car washes. It's like, okay, solve a problem. There's 3 more here. So once we solve those 3, we're probably going to get a couple more. And right after we're about to quit, we'll solve that last problem. And then we might be able to get to the spot where we can actually start creating some revenue.
Wow. Incredible. So how do you go about coming up with this idea? And I mean, you've obviously never developed anything,
Never.
A product base. And then of course, I would imagine you're dealing with the FDA, right?
USDA.
Or USDA. I mean,
Yep.
yes, correct. Sorry. So there's government now involved.
Mm-hmm.
This is stuff that you know nothing about going into it, right? So you're really taking a crash course lesson on how all of this works. What does that look like? So I'm guessing then you are, being that, you're a farmer and you've got access to cattle, you got access to deer meat or whatever. You're probably playing around with some of this on your own, doing your own formulations, I guess, in your own house. Is that accurate, or are you?
Nope.
No, really.
I'd never made a meat stick in my life.
Really?
Yeah.
I really see. Now you disappointed me because I thought for sure you would have done that.
No, I've never made one in my life. I had no idea how to do it.
So how did you? When you say you researched, what were you researching?
So I Googled butchering facilities or smokehouses around the U.S., and I found a few different ones. I called up the smokehouse called Western Smokehouse over in Greentop, Missouri, northeast Missouri. They're a very, very large smokehouse, and somehow just calling out of the blue, I was able to work my way to the owner, which at the time I didn't think was a big deal. I was like, oh, it's some guy in a little butcher shop. But apparently it's like this huge facility. So the fact that I was able to finagle my way to getting the owner on the phone, and then I was just some stupid kid talking to him, and he was like, I was like, hey, I want to make meat sticks. Like, can you do that for me? And then he's like, well, sure, send me over, your recipe. We can get a private label agreement going. Do you have your packaging in place? I was like, no, I just wanted to make meat sticks. Like, I figured you could just do that for me. And he's like, no, that's not how this works. And I ended up having like a 45-minute conversation with him.
That is really cool that owner took the time out for you.
It is. Yeah, his name's Kevin Western Smokehouse. They're huge. I think they just sold to private equity, but Kevin Western got me my start there, and that was really nice of him to take that time.
Wow.
So he got me in the direction of a, meat chemist, meat formulator that has done all of these incredible flavor offerings for some of the biggest brands on the retail shelves today.
Okay.
And this guy's out of Rapid City, South Dakota, which Rapid City is a hop, skip, and a jump to get to. It is not like a very big city at all. It's more of a town. Mm-hmm. And so I called him up and started talking to him a little bit, told him what I wanted to do with more of a direct-to-consumer brand, and he was like, oh, this is awesome. He's like, you don't understand the difficulties in going retail and what you have to deal with whenever you're trying to go through a Costco, a Target, like a Whole Foods. These guys, they require so much testing and information that is unneeded. It just kills your margins to the time that you have to move, 5 million meat sticks to make $100,000. Mm-hmm. It's just insane. And so he's like, I love the direct to consumer. You have control over your marketing. You have control over the entire product process. He's like, fly out to me and let's start messing with some samples. And so the next week I flew out to Rapid City and met up with this guy. I was completely by myself, and we were in his house just making samples left and right.
Wow. So
that's how that got started.
How many different SKUs do you have?
Currently we have 15 different SKUs on the market, and I've got another 22 flavors that are approved and finalized. I'm just waiting on packaging to come in.
So this is something that you're still very involved with, and it's something that is still scaling, still growing.
I built a manufacturing facility, so it's
oh my God,
now.
What?
Yeah.
Where's that at?
So it's at my farm up in Gallatin.
Okay.
So yeah, I've got a building.
Are you using your cattle for this?
So we're using some of our cattle. Right now I'm going through so much meat sticks that I'm having to buy meat and bring it in too. So
wow.
Yeah, it's moving some serious product. We're making 25,000 meat sticks a day right now.
Unreal. Yeah. Congratulations, man. That is huge.
Thank you.
How are you marketing it?
All social media.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do I ask this? Do you have a social ad budget then that you're making, that you're using to make sure that you're influencing those who could and should be your customers?
Correct. So it's funny because it's weird how the hunting industry has helped me out so much in business, and I never could have foreseen this, on the front end, but now looking back, it's helped me out tremendously. So through the hunting network, we got in with several country music artists. They came up, hunted my farm. I let them kill, some of our deer.
Let's back up. How did that happen? How did you get involved with having country artists come to your farm? How did you get involved in the hunting industry?
So my brother and I, we grew up watching hunting television. We loved it. So we started going out there filming all of our hunts. We've done this since we were little.
Yeah.
We got in with Drury Outdoors.
Yep. Okay.
And so
that's right. I knew that.
Yeah. Got in with Drury, and then we actually had our own show on the Pursuit channel. It was awful. Don't ever look it up. Called Point of Impact. Unfortunately,
I didn't know that. I'm sorry.
Videos are still on YouTube. They're awful. It was such a bad show.
You should have gone to an HB film school.
Yeah, we did.
Did you really?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I went back, but I didn't know Michael or Sean from Adam, and we went to them. So,
that's really cool.
Yeah, back in the day. So yeah, we were all over the place.
I was trying to crack a joke, and now that kind of worked against me.
We were there, right behind Bass Pro. Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yep. So that's
how you got into the industry. Then
Yep.
you tried to start a show.
Yep. Tried to start a show. That was an epic fail.
What failed about it?
The show was horrible. We didn't know how to pitch to sponsors, so we just went in with a pitch deck. I would go to the ATA show, and I'd just walk around and request meetings. I didn't know what to present to them. I didn't know like what metrics they're looking for. I'm like, hey, I've got a show, why don't you be my title sponsor and give me $20,000? Like, it was just horrible. I had no concept.
You and they're thinking like you're the 15th person who's come up to me and said, "Hey, I got a show."
I'm nobody, like nobody. I have no metrics to give them. I have absolutely like no information other than like, here's an episode on an iPad.
So who's field producing this? Are you guys doing the camera work?
We're doing everything.
You're doing the post production as well.
Post production as well.
That's where you screwed up.
It was awful.
If you don't know what you're doing with that, then you should have hired that part out.
And so I had to learn crash course. Like my brother Jesse and I would be up until 3 a.m. editing these episodes. And, the Pursuit channel is definitely a lesser channel than like Sportsman or Outdoor. Yeah. But there's still, you have to get these certain commercial breaks. You have to do the closed captioning. Like didn't know how to do any of this. Yes. So I'm sending it off to the Pursuit channel and they're sending it back to me. They're like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. And so I was looking up on YouTube.
They didn't require a pilot episode before you started. Oh my gosh.
This is Pursuit channel, all right? This is not like Sports.
I get it. Okay. Fair enough. So anyway, you're getting criticized then by the actual network.
Yes. Yeah.
When they're in desperate need of content and they now don't want your content.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you get any sponsors the first year?
We had 3 sponsors, I think. We had 1 product sponsor, and then I think we maybe had $10,000 in sponsorship.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the rest of the money, I think that's the Pursuit channel. We had to pay $40,000 for the season.
Sounds about right.
Yep. And then I made the rest of the money up from selling guided hunts that fall.
Oh man.
So then I was doing guided hunts.
Were you doing that before, or were you just doing that to try to?
I was just doing that
offset the cost.
Yeah, I was just trying to scrape up enough money to pay for the Pursuit channel.
But you don't do guided hunts anymore.
No, I will never do. Yeah. I literally all at the same time, I was trying to farm. I was trying to do the rental properties, trying to do guided hunts. I didn't sleep at all. I chose the worst, most labor intensive work you could ever do.
Okay. So now that you got that out of the way, we come back full circle. So that's what your experience was with the hunting industry, which allowed you then somehow through that to meet country artists?
Correct. So at the ATA show,
of course.
Whether it be through the Dre Outdoors connections or, just seeing the country artists and walking around, I would sell them like I had the best farm in the entire nation. Like I knew what I was doing. I mean, I would literally pitch this to them and be like, you got to come out and come to my farm and hunt. And then not only that, on Instagram, I was shooting my shot. I was sliding in so many DMs of these country artists, just hoping one of them would take the bait. And actually a surprising amount did. And so we started.
Like who?
Dylan Scott, John Langston, Riley Green, Dustin Lynch. So they all come up and hunt my farms. And we actually had pretty good hunts whenever they were up there. And we showed them a good time. And, they ended up becoming really good friends of ours. And so, all those guys are now helping me network Apex Protein Snacks, where I would normally be paying them a substantial amount of money. They're just doing it for free just because we're buddies.
Wow, that's cool. I remember when Dylan Scott first came out, I was still working at the radio station, and we were just about to launch Heartland Waterfowl.
Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and he was telling me about how he's really big into hunting. Yep. And I think, I don't even know, we might have exchanged numbers, and I never did ever follow up with that. And now he's a big deal, and I'm still trying to figure out what we're doing. But I take that back. No, we're very blessed to be filming season 10 of Heartland Waterfowl already. But so basically then through social media marketing and through influencers, if you will, through the country music scene, that is what has allowed you to scale Apex to where it is today.
That is correct.
Do you have a pretty large ad budget for social media?
We don't have.
Do you dabble with it a little?
I dabble with it a little bit. I think we spend right around $5,000 to $7,000 a month. But really,
that's a pretty good chunk.
It's a pretty good chunk.
I see what you're saying based on where you're at. It wasn't always $5,000 or $7,000 a month.
No. We scaled it up. I mean, we did really, really well organically. So the sticks
was
really
that back
took
when
off.
it was a lot easier to get in front of people before the whole algorithm came in and started changing everything?
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten substantially harder. Even nowadays, like the influencers that we're using, they would send over, how many conversions we'd get from their links, and it's down, 80 to 90% of what it was even a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
So it makes it tough.
So do you have influencers outside of the country music scene?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're all
What are you
over.
looking for when you see that? Just people who are into fitness?
Yeah, I mean, people that are into fitness, we actually really target micro influencers. So those people that have 5 to 10,000 followers, but they're very, very loyal followers. So these people that have 1 million followers, a lot of times, for instance, if it's, a really pretty girl and she puts out very flattering photos on social media, she's not going to convert. I don't care if she has 2 million followers. Yeah. No person is going to say, I want to buy a meat stick from her because she posted about it. They're following her because they like looking at her.
Yeah.
And so I would rather target this person that has 5 to 10,000 followers, but they provide value to their follower.
Sure.
Whether it be through fitness programs or, diet programs, they're actually giving information that's pertinent to the follower, and they actually, are going to listen to them.
What does a typical influencer relationship partnership look like?
So we start everything off on a 90-day contract because we don't know how well they're going to convert. And so that helps us establish a baseline of, what we're willing to pay them and what we think they could produce for us revenue-wise. And so I don't like to do that. I think a lot of people are like, oh, so you're trying to get money out of them before you pay them. And I'm like, no, I'm trying to establish a fair offer for them because I could very drastically undervalue them and underpay them. And
or overpay them.
Or overpay them. But you don't know that until you establish that baseline. So, basically we started off with a 90-day, try and see how things go, and then decide where to go from there.
How many influencers do you have with the brand?
Overall, we've got 35. Yeah, 35 influencers that work with us.
And is it gotten to the point where people are reaching out to you because they want to be an influencer, or are you constantly on the lookout for those? Or both? I guess it could be both.
Yeah, it's both. We have a lot of people that reach out to us, but most of the high-profile influencers we're still reaching out to. I'm hoping that will change as we, grow and expand, and we're really starting to launch with these 22 flavors that I've got in my back pocket that are ready to go. Once we get packaging in, we're going to be launching a new flavor every other week. And so that's when we're really going to start gaining that traction of, getting the attention on social media. You have to do those new launches. Like with these businesses, you have to come out with something new and put it in front of people. Otherwise, it stales out real quick.
Do you have good retention with your influencers?
We have not lost a single one yet.
That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of content are you looking for from them?
Because
obviously from when you started to where it is today, social media has changed. Everything's kind of going towards videos and reels now. So do you just kind of change with the times?
Yeah, I mean, we're really looking at video content. And really the worst thing an influencer can do, and any person on social media can do, is like take a selfie with the product that they have and say, here's my code, buy this.
Yeah,
that does nothing. You're not going to get a single conversion. You have to show how you're utilizing it day to day. So if you're cooking eggs, cut up a meat stick and throw them on top and say, this is a perfect topping to your scrambled eggs. Show how you're actually using the product in everyday life.
Authentic content.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I will never, ever, ever want an influencer to just take a photo and say, hey, here's my link. I mean,
I don't know how many, and you know what, here's the funny thing about that comment is that that's kind of been the new wave or as far as marketing is concerned. And it's been that way, I would think, for the last 5 years at least. When we first started doing the TV show, there was a lot of hard sell marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And TV shows would stop down for their third segment, and they'd be like, all right, today I'm going to tell you about the XYZ shotgun and why this is the best shotgun that has ever been made. And then the whole segment is all talking about the nuts and bolts of a shotgun, which nobody really gives a shit about, really. Like nobody really cares about this piston and this thing. And, maybe they may care if it's inertia versus gas driven, but like, this is it aesthetically pleasing? Does it shoot straight? There's in what we as a Heartland brand, because HP is the same way, is we've always taken a soft sell approach. And that is more respected and more well received with our audience. And there's a lot of sponsors, a lot of people who are in the industry like yourself that see the value in that today, but you would be surprised how many times I'll come across a business that will want to partner with us and they want us to stop down and do a product segment and talk about this. And I'm like, that's just not what we do. And if that's what you want, then we're not a right fit for you.
Yep. Absolutely. Like, I don't have any minimum amount of posts for my influencers. I hate it whenever, these brands are out there and they're saying, like, I want 5 story posts and 2 main feed posts per week or whatever the metric is. Because the minute you put a minimum on the post amount is the minute you lose the organic feeling of the content. Like, there's just no doubt about it.
I felt that too with what we have to deliver for our sponsors when they're like, all right, in this year's agreement, you're going to have to do 2 posts a month and, and X amount of videos and this, that, and another. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's my job, right? We're content creators. That's what we're supposed to do. But when you start putting a number to it, it's almost like, this is something I have to do versus something that I really just want to do because you have the trust in me that I'm going to represent you. And I felt like we do have partners who are like that. We're like, look, you do your thing. I've watched your page. I watched your Instagram. I know that you guys are going to take care of me. Just, do what you do. Okay, that's great. I can get on board with that, and I actually will probably
push it more than what the minimum requirement would have been.
It makes no sense.
It
is psychology.
Yep.
It is. But from a 30,000 foot view, it doesn't make any sense. Like if but I understand why people like businesses will want to, and if you're old school business, then it's hard for you to get away from having some sort of agreement of accountability. That if I'm going to pay you to do X, Y, and Z, you're going to do what you say you're going to do. But it's really cool that you are putting yourself in a position that you're going out on good faith, that if you take this approach, which is kind of do you ever listen or follow Gary Vaynerchuk?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Love him. Absolutely love him. He's kind of got that same approach. And that they will actually perform better for you.
100%.
Yeah, that's really neat. All right, so Apex, that's another business. So you got the farm, you've got the rental properties, and now you come out with the meat sticks. Oh, I know what I was going to ask. How many freaking different flavors can you come out with a meat stick?
So you'd be surprised.
Apparently.
Because I honestly thought I was going to hit a ceiling pretty quick at like 10 or 15 flavors. But yeah. I think I'm going to be able to do 40, maybe 50.
What is a flavor that I would not think of?
Dill pickle. Spicy dill pickle.
Okay. I mean, I can get on with that. Yeah. I like that. But
then
what's the most random thing that you've done that you just would like when the idea was presented, you thought, what?
Okay. So I did, we were trying to formulate these. They're not going to hit the market after the flavor. Liver and onion stick, because I'm telling you, the fitness industry right now, everyone's like into this liver side because have you seen Liver King on social media?
I have not.
He blew up on social media, like the biggest thing on fitness, TikTok, fitness, Instagram right now.
Okay.
He's eating raw liver, just like out there eating raw liver all the time. So we wanted to get behind it. So we tried.
Do you do that? Do you like that?
I tried it. I couldn't do it.
No,
I couldn't.
It's great catfish bait, but
it's the texture just, I couldn't do it. So yeah, we tried making liver and onion sticks, and no matter what we tried, I could not mask the taste of the liver. So those will never hit the market, unfortunately.
Okay. Is there fruity flavors, or are these more like the mesquite or the hickory?
Oh yeah. So we've got cranberry bacon. We've got jalapeno cranberry. So it's a mix of sweet and a little bit of spice, and it's good flavoring. So yeah, it's very solid. And spicy pineapple too.
And it's just protein, right? It's just removing the sugars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only sugars that are going to come in these meat sticks are from the fruits. So like, because the fruits do come with sugar. There's no way to get around that. So the ones that have fruit in them are going to be a little higher in sugar, but like the original sticks or anything that does not contain fruit is literally 0 to 1 gram of sugar.
Wow.
Yep.
That's incredible. And that's been 4 years running now?
So 2020 was first year that we launched. November 2020.
Well, I guess you said you started the idea in 18.
Yes,
yeah.
Correct.
All right. So you launched to market in 2020. Oh, you picked was it a terrible time to launch?
It's a pretty rough time, actually.
Yeah. How did that work out with the COVID?
So November, would have been late November 2020 we launched, and I was like so excited. So I'd spent months, like the entire year, gearing up for this launch. I'd built the website out, and then we had the launch going at like 9 a.m., and I had worked with this web developer, so I'm sitting there on the back end of the website, like just sitting there, we're ready for 9 a.m. to hit. And I was like, there's going to be so many orders hit. And from like 9 to noon, I think I had 5 orders. And I had stocked up on a bunch of inventory, and I was like, oh shit. Like,
what are you going to do?
What happened?
Yeah.
And so I'm freaking out,
Did you have a big runway of pre-market or marketing before the launch?
Not a whole lot. I was still learning, so I didn't have a whole lot of social media ads going. I had a lot of influencers that were, I'd sent out a bunch of product to for them to try, and they'd all posted about it. But the day of the launch, there wasn't a whole lot going on. And so, that first day was a rude awakening for me, and it really had me going back to the drawing board and thinking, okay, what do I need to be doing? I hadn't learned anything about a sales funnel. I didn't know what funnels were. I didn't know how to connect my social media ads to my sales funnel to gear people to work into this funnel and this sales process to where they're really willing to swipe that card and buy your product. I'd never done any of that. And so it was more of oh shit, what am I going to do? I'm sitting on all this inventory. I have all my money put into this, and I've got to figure out a way to sell this. And so went back to the drawing board. I was staying up all night long trying to learn how to get people to learn about the product and want to buy the product. I knew it was better than anything else on the market, so I was like, I just got to get it into people's hands.
Yeah. So what was the problem?
It was just all about ads. So ads and sales funnels. So basically being able to create these funnels to where I can get people to see the brand, see the benefits to the brand, and then see the people that are trying the product, talking about the product, loving the product.
Yeah.
And it's all coming from influencers that this audience trusts.
So how did you build your funnel?
So
because there's a lot of, ClickFunnels,
yeah.
all right?
Yeah.
And was that as simple as just buying a subscription to that? And
yeah, you just buy a subscription to ClickFunnels, but it's not as simple as just
that's my point.
Yeah.
I understand what ClickFunnels is. I guess you have to understand sometimes when I'm asking these questions, I'm asking it for those who are listening because they don't understand exactly how this works.
ClickFunnels is a software program where you can create these sales funnels. So literally, if someone were to click on a social media ad, it takes them into this sales flow where you try and funnel them into the eventual process of swiping their card and buying a product. So whether it starts off with a video where I'm talking about the meat stick and how great it is or how much better it is than the competitors' meat sticks, and then it goes into an upsell where we offer a meat stick package for 20% off if they buy it this first time around. Or maybe we even send them free meat sticks, but all they do is pay shipping and handling. It just gets the meat stick in their hands, and then they want to come back and buy it again.
Okay.
So that's what all this ClickFunnels and learning these sales funnels were all about, and really got a crash course on that because for 2 months, that's all I focused on.
Yeah, because it's not like there's just one formula to a ClickFunnel.
And they don't work the first time. There's a lot of, I think Russell Bronson, who created ClickFunnels, he calls them funnel audibles. Yeah, because you go out there and they flop, and you're like, oh shit, something about this funnel isn't working.
So how many times did you initiate a ClickFunnels or a funnel, and you had to go back and manipulate it or twist it and turn it to get it to where it was really, and then after that, how long did it take upon getting the ClickFunnels subscription? Did you see the return on your investment?
So seeing the return on the actual investment on the software was month one. The first funnel made some money, but every single funnel I would fine tune. So basically if you think of a funnel, you think of 5 different steps. Well, step 1 converted really well, but step 2 sucked. So then I'd change something about the page on step 2, and then it would convert a little better. And so I'd keep working on converting it better and better until I got it to where I thought it was pretty well finalized. So it's just nonstop. I'm telling you, there is nothing in life, especially in entrepreneurship, that comes easy. I have yet to see it. I don't have that lucky horseshoe in my back pocket where from day one things just I'm like, holy crap, how are we selling all this product? No, that does not happen. It is like a freaking grind. I'm stressed to the max and trying to figure out how I can stay afloat.
How do you get the funding? Was this something that you because you had already built some capital through other businesses, or maybe you talked to your dad? Did you go to the bank? How does this happen? Especially now that you got your own manufacturing facility at your farm.
Yep. So when I got my undergrad in entrepreneurship. So basically my entire undergrad and MBA was built around business plans and pitching to banks. So I became very, very good at pitching to whether it be investors or banks and showing them what my business is about and showing them the entire business plan from A to Z. So actually I won a business pitch competition it was called BoFit. So it was a archery range and a CrossFit gym mixed together, and it was like a membership-based model. My MBA, that was my thesis project, was coming up with a business
That's really
plan.
cool.
Yeah, so I ended up...
Why didn't you start that business?
Honestly, it's just too much to
Maybe
take
that's
on.
coming up in like 2030.
That's right. But yeah, I won $7,000 there at my thesis project because we presented it to a bunch of investors and business owners.
That's really cool.
Yep.
So that was that experience from college then that has allowed you.
So then I'd put together these business plans that then I would take to banks, and I'd either get a small business loan or I would try and find government funding. So like for my meat facility, my manufacturing facility right now, I'm very good at exploring government grants. Where can I get the cheapest amount of money, where I'm not paying crazy interest rates, especially in today's marketplace. And you find these government grants where they're literally, it's a bunch of red tape you have to jump through, but, I can get $200,000 that I don't have to pay back if I upgrade my equipment in my meat facility. So I just try and find any of these government programs that you can. And there's a lot of them out there, especially for entrepreneurs and small business owners. Really? There's a lot more than people think. You just have to really dig into your research.
Wow. I bet I could learn a thing or two with what I'm trying to do. Okay, so I want to take another break here in just a second and get into Joe Millionaire. But what you obviously was the car washes right after Apex then?
Yeah, car washes hit.
Before you get into that, then tell me what you got. All of this. I mean, you're a busy guy. You got all of these things going on. You're building a manufacturing facility at the farm with these Apex meat sticks. Hey, I got too much time on my hands, I guess. I just need something else. Why don't we start a car wash? Because I just need something else to fill my day.
Well, if you look at all the businesses that I had done up until that point, they were all extremely labor intensive.
Yes.
Farming was completely dependent on Mother Nature. You could go out and do everything 100% correct, and it could all be wiped out with a flood or a drought.
Yep.
So
or a hailstorm.
Yeah, or a hailstorm. So I wanted to find a business that had low labor because I could see labor was becoming a challenge whenever we started getting into 2019, 2020. So low labor, reoccurring revenue model. I'm not chasing down money through, accounts receivable, so I'm not calling on people to pay me. And then also was repeatable and scalable. So I was trying to find something that we could basically make cookie cutter. We take one copy of it and we print it all over the place. So you look at a car wash.
Yeah.
You have membership model every single month, recurring revenue.
Yep.
You're not really dependent on Mother Nature to an extent, but anywhere in the Midwest, you have the right weather for car washing.
Yeah.
And then you take that same building, that same footprint, and you just slap it all over lots wherever there's a good lot location.
Yeah.
And so to me, that car wash was the best business model that I could find out of anything that I've explored thus far.
So when you did that, did you design it for yourself, or did you go and see other, I don't know how to ask this question because I'm not familiar with the industry, but I guess it would be much like if I've always had this, I told you this on the phone, I think the first time we talked, that I've always had this passion for wanting to start a self-storage facility. Mm-hmm. It's the same concept from the standpoint mailbox money, I guess is where we're going with that. But there's these places that you can go then that have the infrastructure to build this, right? Like there's somebody who manufactures the buildings for the self-storage. Did you have to go vet and interview all these different people who provide you the technology for the car wash?
Yeah, I spent 2 years just in R&D on the car wash. So I flew out to Chicago, Green Bay, San Francisco, Orlando, Florida, all to different manufacturers of car wash equipment, car wash architects in Chicago and San Fran. Like I was just scheduling meetings all over the place to just try and learn as much as I possibly could on the forefront side of that, so I would hopefully limit the amount of mistakes I had whenever I was actually building them. And for the most part, we did a pretty good job. The building, our first build out went really well. If there's anything I could take back, I would have made the entry door and exit doors a little wider. They're 10 feet, so they can handle anything, but I'd rather have them 14 to 16 feet. But I mean, very, very small changes that we have to make. So overall, I was pretty happy.
When you say we, who's involved in this business?
So now we've got about 45 employees between all of our locations.
But as far as owners?
So owners, my dad, we've got a COO named Galena, and then myself. the COO is incredible. Galena does a ridiculous amount of work really creating the systems. She comes over from Pacific Dental, who was opening a new location every other day when she was there. So when you talk about scaling, like whenever we thought, okay, we want to build 100 car washes over the next 5 to 7 years, and started looking at what we needed someone that came from that corporate background of crazy scale and knew how to create the systems to where you can scale without flopping. And so Galena fit that bill to...
How'd you come across her?
Actually, so just through our different business networks here in Kansas City, one of our friends had told us about this woman that was winning sweeping every single management and operator award for Pacific Dental. And we knew that we were getting ready to start building out these car washes. And we knew that, my dad and I are very visionary minded. So, but we're also, we get bored very quickly. So we're like here, and then we're here, and then we're here, and then we're here. Yep. Obviously, you can tell from the stories that I've just been telling you.
Well, I'm the one asking the question, so I guess I'm just as guilty.
So we needed someone that was like more organized and OCD and focused on the implementation side. And so we knew we were missing that fit. And so Galena really has come in and taken that role on great.
Good. And so how many car washes do you have to date?
Yeah, so right now we've got 6 of them up and operating, but we have another 8 that are under construction.
All right. Is one of them off 23rd Street in Independence?
It is.
I drove by that today.
Yep.
Drove by that today. It looks great.
Yeah.
Okay, so another question, and I don't know if I should mention this because I don't want it to cause controversy, but that arena has really stepped up its game. Meaning that space, the car wash space. Yep. You got the Go car washes of the world. They've really came in and they bought up all the
Belfontes.
Thank you. You got Travis Kelce, who out there is doing his thing. Yep. So what is it about what you guys are doing that makes you feel like that you're in a competitive that you can compete with what everybody else is doing? Like, or is there any difference?
Yeah, there's a lot of difference as far as the equipment goes, which, it sucks because most customers don't even notice the equipment that goes into a car wash. We're putting in a much higher end equipment package. But the biggest key difference is that we have a conveyor belt. So basically we can take from a Porsche all the way up to a dually truck. Whereas most car washes are what they call a chain and drag system. So you have a rub rail going in. Yep. It's scary as all get out. In my truck, I have an F-250 stock tires and rims. I can't even take it through a rub rail.
I know. You saw my truck probably in the driveway. There's no way I can get through a car wash anymore without doing it myself.
Correct. So you could take that easily through ours. So that's the benefit is we can take virtually any vehicle. It's easy. You're not getting yelled at by a high school kid working in the tunnel telling you, go left, go right, getting mad at you. It's self-loaded with a big flat screen that goes from green to red whenever you get onto the conveyor belt. And then we also have a drive-through coffee shop.
Yeah, that was the other cool little concept to that.
Yep. So
do you don't have anybody that's working in the bay that's kind of spraying the bugs off or doing any kind of degreasing?
So we have bug prep stations on the front end of the tunnel where it's all mechanically driven because my idea behind everything in the car wash is consistency and getting the exact same wash every single time.
Yep.
If you have kids working at the front, given what's called the bug prep, first time you go through there, you have a kid that really takes care of you, spends 2 minutes on your car, you're happy. The next time you go through there, if the car wash line's backed up or you have a kid that really doesn't care about the wash and they just kind of wave the wand on you and send you through, no matter what happens the rest of that wash, you're upset.
Yeah.
So...
when are you going to get one here close to RP Enterprises?
Actually.
Or is there one that I don't know about?
There's one that you don't know about.
Oh,
so,
really? Where's that at?
Yeah, so right off 291.
291 and where?
So right by the Quick Trip, it's actually the old wash
house.
House.
That direction. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd never go that way.
Oh.
So that's why I didn't know.
Well,
and that was built from scratch?
That one, well, we are still going through city permitting, actually.
I'm sorry. I thought you were telling me that you have one that has been built and everything.
No.
Okay, because you're making me feel like a real asshole.
No.
Didn't you know that I had a McBEE right down the street? And I was like, well, I guess I don't really go that way anyway.
We've got some coming here pretty soon.
All right, fantastic. All right, so the car wash is the latest venture then.
That is the latest venture. That's the one. No, that's it. We're putting our heart and soul into the car washes because of the, what could potentially come of them. So.
Mm-hmm. And so is there anything else on the horizon that you can talk about? I know that there's things on the horizon you can't talk about.
Yes. 2023 is going to be a very fun and exciting year. Hopefully we're going through some things that should be really, really neat and, be similar to Joe Millionaire. I can say that much. But won't be dating, I guess. Or maybe we will. Who knows?
Who knows? It could be. All right, speaking of Joe Millionaire, that's where we're going to transition next and then wrap up the show. And so all of you serious serial reality TV watchers that have been waiting and waiting and waiting for us to get to the nitty-gritty of what happened with Joe Millionaire, stand by. It's coming up next on episode 25 of the Papa Ron Podcast.
The Papa Ron Podcast is brought to you by Dumar Solutions. Dumar Solutions, offering affordable chemical and PPE solutions for any industry. Automotive, industrial, manufacturing, concrete, and asphalt construction. Also offering kitchen cleaners, corrosion control, and specialty coatings. Detergents, cleaners and degreasers, laundry care, floor care, odor control, personal hygiene, and much more. Do more with Dumar. Inquire with any of your needs at DumarSolutions.com. That's DOMARE Solutions.com. Now back to the Papa Ron Podcast. Here's Ronnie Phillips.
Want to be sure to thank all of our great sponsors here on the Papa Ron Podcast. All businesses of which that I own. Hey, if you want to get more information about the Papa Ron Podcast and those that are those sponsors that you hear here on the show, then I would encourage you to go to paparonradio.com. There on that website, you're going to see that this is more than just a podcast, and there's other services that are provided through voiceover and copywriting and radio station voice tracking. In fact, I was just talking earlier about being on 100.7 KMZU up there in Carrollton, Missouri, doing the night show. And so check it out. I'd love for you to check it out if you get a chance. paparonradio.com. All right, Joe Millionaire. Did that change your life?
Not to the extent that I thought it would, honestly. Going into it, what Fox had planned and what they put into the marketing side of it, Kurt, the other guy, and I were thinking we were going to be pretty big deals going into 2022. I mean, they put a lot of money into the marketing. Heck, they had our faces in Times Square. I mean, it was pretty wild. There was billboards all across the country. They dumped a lot of money into the marketing, and the show did decent. Ratings wise, I think it was averaging 1.2 to 1.3 million viewers. And so they're still thinking about making another season going into 2023. But it did not change my life substantially. It was fun, though. I enjoyed it.
How did it all come about?
So they reached out to me on Instagram, a casting company that was hired by Fox.
Randomly,
out of nowhere. I thought it was a joke, didn't respond. And then they sent me another message and they said, why don't we just schedule one Zoom call? So I was like,
what do you got to lose?
What's it hurt? So scheduled the Zoom call. And the minute they Zoom called me, they were in like a legitimate office and there was like people that looked legitimately like they were from LA. And so I was like, maybe there's something to this. And that would have been January of 2021. And I didn't hear back from them until April. And so I just was like, whatever, nothing's coming of that. Well, they reached back out to me in April and they started asking for a bunch of financial information because they told me at the time that the show was called Love for Real and it was about a bunch of people that were focusing on their careers and were ready to find love. I was like, well, I'm not really ready to find love, but I've got this brand called Apex that's direct to consumer. If I could grow my audience, I could sell more Apex. So that was my idea of thinking going into it. I didn't really think I was going to find love on a dating show, but thought I could have some fun and hopefully grow my audience.
Money.
Yeah, exactly. So I sent over a bunch of financial information.
What kind of information are they out? Tax returns?
Oh,
what are they asking for?
I had to send over tax returns, personal financial statement, balance sheets, ownership documents of all the companies. I'm not kidding. I felt like I was being audited by the government.
That's what I'm going with this is, did they really need that information?
I don't know why they requested that much. I was so confused. I honestly, I told my dad a little bit about it. We were laughing about it. And it got to a point where I was sending 5 or 6 emails back with their credit analyst. And I was like, dude, fly out here and look at my assets if you're like doubting anything, but otherwise, like, I'm not sending any more information to you. I feel like I just sold you my soul.
Yeah.
And so I was done. Like I told him, I was like, I'm not sending you anything else. Like I don't want this. Like these are internal documents. I don't even know you. Yeah. And so after that email, didn't hear anything back. That was early June. And then July comes And then all of a sudden, like the Fox executives want to set up a Zoom. And I'm like, oh, this is going somewhere then. And so they set up a Zoom. They said, hey, we think you're the guy. We want you to fly out here to L.A. It's down to like the last 5 guys. And so I fly out to L.A. This would have been like July 25th. And didn't hear anything from them until late August, like August 20th. And I get a call. There's like 8 different people I'm communicating with. And I get a call from the lead person. And he's like, hey, we think you're the guy. And if you are the guy and the show goes through, we're going to be out to your house in 3 days to film. And I'm like, 3 days? Like,
yeah.
And he's like, yeah, you need to be ready to be gone for 6 weeks, but we don't know if it's for sure yet. And I'm like, so you don't know if it's for sure, but if it is for sure, it's going to start shooting in 3 days.
Oh my.
And so I was like, and I hadn't told anyone about it because I didn't want to be made fun of, like if I'm like, hey, I'm on this reality show and then it doesn't happen.
Right.
And so I hadn't told anyone about it besides like my dad and a couple of my brothers. I'm like, hey, I think they're going to be here in 3 days, so we better clean up the farm, like make it look pretty nice for them. But I'm not entirely sure, so don't make fun of me.
Yeah.
And like a day
But they made fun of you anyway.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, 100%. 100%. And then a day before I got the call, they're like, hey, we'll be there at, 3 p.m. tomorrow. We'll start shooting around 6 p.m. It's like, okay, this is surreal. Like,
yeah,
you're telling me, like, I was like, I really hope this isn't a joke and like a couple people don't fly out here with like little handy cams and anything like that.
Right.
That was my other big concern. They don't tell you anything about what's going on with these shows. I didn't know it was Joe Millionaire. They told me it was a show called Love for Real. They didn't tell me any other information. They didn't tell me where we were going. That's on purpose, 100% intentional. They don't want you telling more information or giving out more information to, if I was to call anyone with a network to TMZ or whatever it may be.
Sure.
They don't want any of that information getting out, so they keep it all from you. And they keep you in the dark the entire time. So, we're shooting the show. We did 3 days at the farm, and then I rode down with them in a van to Kansas City Airport. I had no idea where I was going still. And then we ended up flying to Atlanta, and then we went to a mansion just outside of Atlanta in Gainesville.
Okay, so let's back up here. So these strangers, how many people are in this crew?
So the crew I was scared it was going to be like 2 or 3 guys. There ended up being like 20 people that flew out to
This
my
is what
farm.
I was afraid of. So you got 20 people that are flying into your farm or flying out to Kansas City to be at your farm. Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming they're staying at some hotel. Where, I mean, you're in Gallington, right?
Yeah.
So where are they staying?
Cameron. So it was about a 30-minute drive.
Okay. I know where Cameron is, right off Highway 36. So then do they prep you at all for like, okay, we're going to send a crew out there. They're going to give you an itinerary or just follow their lead. Did they prep you with what you were going to be covering while they're there? And did you know that after those 3 days, you were going to be going with them to the airport and be flying out?
So they didn't prep me over what we would be shooting. They told me nothing itinerary-wise. I didn't know anything. I just had the entire farm clean, and I knew that they didn't want me to appear wealthy in any way. That was the only thing they told me. So,
okay.
Which is fine. I don't wear anything. Like, I dress pretty normal like
You're
a
a
farmer.
humble guy.
Yeah.
I get it.
And so that was all I knew. I knew I was also going to be leaving after 3 days to go wherever they were taking me, but I didn't know where.
Okay.
That was it. Like, that's all I knew.
And this happened 3 days before those 3 days that they told you this, right? Because it was just a few days before that they said we were coming.
Yeah, they're like, we don't know if it's for sure or not, but if it is for sure, here's what we're going to be doing. And then the day before they got there is when they said, okay, we're coming.
Okay. So how much, you're involved in a lot of stuff, right? I mean, you got your dad and your brothers, I guess, are still involved in the business,
yes,
right?
Correct.
So who's picking up your slack while you're gone, and what did that look like?
So
what did that conversation look like?
In a normal reality show, especially a dating show, they take your phone the entire time. You're not allowed to have it. I had negotiated with them in July when I flew out there to LA. I said, I'm running day-to-day companies. I have got to have my phone for like 4 to 6 hours a day. There's just no way around it. And they said, if you're selected as a guy, that's fine. We'll make that stipulation okay. So I knew I could keep things afloat. I knew there was no chance in hell that I was ever going to move a business forward trying to, do it from a phone for 4 hours a day. But I figured I could keep things somewhat afloat. And I knew the farming operation going into harvest, for the most part, it could be handled because I'm not in a tractor anymore every single day.
Yeah.
And so I knew that could be handled.
And so what time of the year was this? You said July?
Labor Day is when they were at my farm.
Labor Day.
So they started August 29th and then I left for Atlanta September 2nd.
All right.
Yep.
So your harvesting is well, no, I guess you still had quite a bit of harvesting to do going into October, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
When I got back October 19th, we're only halfway through harvest then. So.
Okay. So you were in just outside of Atlanta for how long? 6 weeks?
Yeah, 6 weeks. We had to go through, they also didn't tell me this was during COVID, and it was a union show, so it's very, very strict. We had to do a 7-day hotel room lockdown, quarantine. I could not leave my hotel room for 7 days straight. Like I'd have to text them what food I wanted. They'd leave it at the door of the hotel, and I'd open up the door, grab my food, and then I had to close it. I was stuck in a hotel for 7 days straight. And I didn't know that either going into it.
Where you had to have been like, what the hell?
I was so mad. I was so mad.
Right. I would be
I was
too.
calling all the producers. I was like, hey, this is not what I signed up for. Like, what is going on?
Yeah. Okay. At what point do you find out? I was watching a YouTube clip tonight or earlier today, and you, I think you said, or maybe Kurt said, that you didn't know that this was Joe Millionaire until you got there.
Yeah. Yeah, we
That's
had
true.
no idea. Yeah.
Okay. So how do they break that to you? I mean, they get you all, you're in this mansion. I guess they're telling you they got your clothes sizes. So you didn't show up there with the tux.
No.
Right. They said, here's your tux, put it on.
Yep.
Right. And guess what? You're Joe Millionaire.
Yeah. So during the hotel quarantine, they brought in a stylist, and he would push like this whole rack of clothing to the front of the hotel door. So I was trying on clothing the entire time. So then after the 7 days were up, Kurt, the other guy, and I had heard through the grapevine that there was another guy. Like the producers would be whispering and be like, "Oh yeah, that looked good on the other guy." And I'm like, "The other guy? Like, what are they talking about?"
They're screwing with you.
Yeah, I was like, what are they doing? Are they trying to have me in like a competition? Like, I didn't understand it. So then day 8, we leave the hotel and we go to this giant mansion, and I'm in this guest house, and I'm in a studio about like this, and it's like an interview setup. And we're sitting there like doing the interview, and I'm talking about how like my dating life is gone, and like I'm trying to find love, and I'm filling them with some, again, I wasn't there to find love, but I was like,
right.
I hope I find my future wife here. I'm just selling it to them.
Okay, so you're hamming it up without them asking you to ham it up.
Oh no, they were wanting me to, they were like saying like, are you here to find your wife? Like, what if you get engaged when you're here? I'm like, oh my God, I'll never. Yeah. But I was like, oh,
So you weren't really serious about this whole thing?
No, not at all. Yeah. Not at all. And so then they're sitting there, and the guy that is interviewing me is sitting right off camera, and he sits there and he's like, okay, we're about to tell you something. Are you ready for it? And I honestly, like, there's so much weird stuff had happened. I had no idea where this was going. Like, I was like, I don't know what they're about to say. So then the main producer, Sally Ann Salsano, who created Jersey Shore, walks into the room, and she's
you don't know that, right?
I don't know her.
So they probably introduce you as the person who produced Jersey Shore, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So she walks in, and she's like, Steven, we just want to tell you, you're Joe Millionaire. And I was like, I could see the depth of the moment. Like, I knew it was a big moment, but I was like, okay, cool. I don't know what Joe Millionaire is.
Yeah.
I had no idea
had you not ever heard of it before?
No,
like,
never.
What was it? 15, 20, 10 years?
2003.
Yeah. That's right. It was right when I first started working at Q104.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
20 some years ago. Or 20 years ago, actually, almost 20 years ago. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. So the difference though in this year or that show versus the original was there was one guy then and he wasn't a millionaire.
Nope.
And this time there was two guys. One of you were the millionaire and the other one wasn't. Obviously Kurt wasn't, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is Kurt, you still friends with Kurt?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm hanging out with him next weekend.
Is that right? Oh, that's really cool. So he seemed like a cool dude from what little clips I was able to see. And you knew nothing about this guy until you got to the mansion. And it's like all of a sudden, all right, guys, meet, here you go. What is that moment like?
Yeah, it was weird walking into the room. Obviously, Kurt looks a lot different than me. He's got, at the time, he had super long hair. It was up in a man bun, super well-dressed. Obviously looked very confident. I walked into this room, and, like, all these cameras were on us. It was such a surreal moment. And my first thought, like, when I found out there was another guy is, I really hope they aren't trying to pin me to be, like, this rich prick. That was my main concern. I was like, I don't want them to think that like I'm some cocky rich prick, because I'm not. I'm blue collar as all get out. I just,
Yeah.
And so that was my main concern walking in there. And then Kurt and I hit it off right off the bat. We started filming at 10 p.m. is when I met Kurt. And for 3 hours, we were waiting on the women to show up to the mansion so we could meet the women.
At 10 p.m., you said?
Yeah, we film all night long.
So the women didn't show up until after midnight?
Yeah, they showed up at 1 in the morning, and we filmed from 1 in the morning till 7.
Oh, my God.
Everything
that had to be brutal.
Everything in reality TV is hurry up, and then wait. So you get dressed up, like they're like, come on, we're about to get this shot. And then you sit there and wait all the camera crews to get ready, and literally every single shot takes an hour and a half to set up.
Unreal.
Yep.
Wow.
So whenever Kurt and I were off camera, we were, just talking it up, he works construction. I was telling him about the farming operation. We do some construction, build some homes as well.
Yeah.
And so we really hit it off right then and there on the first night.
Where is he from?
Charlotte. North
Carolina?
Yep, North Carolina. I
So
think that was South Carolina or not.
No, that's all right. We'll get into what happened with the girl that you picked in a moment. Did he end up staying with the girl that he picked?
So he picked a girl named Amanda.
The blonde, right?
Yeah. Yep. And she was from New York, and they ended up breaking up right around Thanksgiving. They had a falling out.
Like a couple days ago?
No, like 2 weeks after the show ended, they were done.
Okay.
Yeah, it didn't last very long.
Gotcha. That's the thing that I wanted to ask is I hope this doesn't sound offensive. And I don't think it does, because you seem to have your head screwed on straight. I don't understand why people are so fascinated with these reality dating shows, because they never end up being together, ever. One time, I think, which was what was that show? What was the original dating show? There's Joe Millionaire. It's killing me. Anyway,
probably before my time.
It was one of the very first ones.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. My point is that they never end up together.
Never.
And there's been a variety of different TV dating shows. Wasn't Kelsey on one?
Yeah. Catching Kelsey.
Yeah. Like why do people watch this crap?
People get so caught up and think that you're actually falling in love on these shows. My time frame with each of these women as individuals may have been in totality 40 minutes. Like,
wow.
40 minutes over 6 weeks was my only time alone with that woman. And all of it was on camera. So, of course, you're putting on a front. I don't care what anyone says. You cannot be 100% authentic when you're on camera, especially for the very first times. You're trying to act like the best guy on planet Earth. You're not being your true authentic self. Yeah. And so, you don't even know these people.
So at the end, when you were when you were down to the two, and you had the brunette that was in front of
Annie.
you, which by the way, she was a smoke show.
Yep, Annie's amazing.
And she's walking away in shock, as she says, and you look like you're about ready to break down and cry. That's all.
That one was pretty tough, because Annie and I, Annie's cool. I mean, I had a really, really strong connection with Annie, and still do to this day. Like, she's such a good person. And so, my connections were surprisingly very real, even though they were short-lived.
And you only spent 40 minutes in the entire time of filming with that woman.
Yeah.
Roughly.
Yeah, individually, with just her.
Yeah.
But it was enough to, really see who Annie was as a person. I was like, actually, she's really, really cool, and she's from New York City. Yeah. So whenever she was walking away, which I don't do well in those conversations anyways. I struggle. That's always, I hate those conversations.
Because you feel like such a douche.
I hate it. And so, watching her walk away, that was pretty tough. I think they definitely pulled some film of, I was standing up on that altar for 3.5 hours. And so there was times where I was like, holy smokes. And I think they pulled some of those clips, where I was just tired from standing, and they showed it as she was walking away.
Yeah.
But it was a tough conversation to have, because she is such a good person.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So, the women that are in the show, are they in it for the same reason they can't be in it for the same reason. There's a competition. There's only 2 of you guys. There's however many, 30 of them.
There was 20 to start.
20? Okay. Yep. So, what are they really going on there to push a business, to push their identity? What's in it for them?
everyone goes on TV for the same reason. It's to
Be
build
famous?
up. Yeah, it's to build up their brand.
Okay.
You know, what some of these women did have their own companies, or some of them were trying to become influencers. I mean, that's the entire goal, is the opportunity to extend your platform. I mean, no one truly goes on reality TV to find love.
But it's not the same for them as it is for you.
No.
Right?
If I was them, like, they had to do the same 7-day quarantine, and they're one of 20.
Yes.
If I wasn't the lead, no way would I've ever done this, ever.
Right. That's what I was trying to understand, is like, did you ever get a sense by, especially now being the show is over and having had conversations with them, did you ever feel that any of them were there genuinely in hopes to find love?
No.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, no.
This is why I don't understand why people watch reality
they're
TV.
Obsessed with it.
Yes. My sister-in-law watched the entire thing. I texted her the other day, by the way, and I got to go through some of this. Where is this? Jenny, who I love dearly. She's my wife's sister. She is one of these fans who will watch the entire thing through and through. So I was like, okay, look, Stephen McBEE is going to come on the podcast. If you got some things that you think might be interesting, shoot me over a text. And so she's like, the girl that he picked, she moved here. They bought a house in Lee Summit, and then they broke up, and then she moved home, but then they were posting again back together, and then now I feel like they're broken up again. So maybe chat about that. There's a lot going on there, Steven.
There's a lot there. Truthfully, I'm a train wreck when it comes to anything dating.
Really? Is that what it is?
Yeah. I mean, what she said is pretty much the truth. She moved up here.
She's like a pharmaceutical sales or something.
She was,
I might have that wrong. I thought I had heard that. She's in Texas though, right?
Yeah, she's in Texas. Now she's doing some things on the influencer side. Beforehand, she worked at an architectural firm.
Okay.
She was a project manager. And she moved up here. We tried to make things work. We actually, we had a pretty good connection. We still do to this day.
So this wasn't all for nothing. Like,
no, it actually wasn't. Like, I talked crap about it, and I was like, I've never gone on there and found love. But I actually ended up having 2 pretty solid connections with 2 different women, and then ended up dating one for like, I like to say I made it a lot longer than anyone else on reality TV did. I made it till like 7 months, 8 months.
So what happened?
Did
she just come to you one day and was like, yeah, this isn't working, I'm just going to go back to Texas?
I'm a very, very tough person to live with, because I'm all over the place all at once, like full steam ahead, full energy. I can't sit still for a second. Mm-hmm. And so we just had conflicting personalities, and it just was not working out. So, she didn't have very many, obviously she had no friends up here.
Yeah.
And she was sitting at that house, and I'm out there working and going from one job to the next job to the next job. Mm-hmm. And she's sitting there by herself and, wanting me to come back home. And I'm like, busy. And so the writing was just on the wall. Like, we both were like, you've got to get back to Dallas. Like, that's the only way, even if, we were broke up, we were like, if we were ever going to make this work, you got to be back home by your family and friends and your support group, and by people that care about you and you can spend time with, because I'm not the guy that's going to be home at 5 p.m. every single day for the rest of the evening. That's just not me.
Yeah. And
so we broke up. She moved back down to Dallas. And
was that hard?
That was pretty tough. It was, because I do care about her. I mean, I did. And,
how long ago was that?
That was May.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds pretty recent.
Yeah.
I mean, relatively.
Relatively. So, yeah, broke up in May. She moved down to Dallas. It took her a little bit to find an apartment. And so she lived at the house there by herself. I lived up north. She moved back down in June, and she's been there ever since. And then we started dating a little bit late July, kind of got back together again, and then kind of broke it off again. So it's a little bit of a train wreck, as per usual.
Right. And so are you courting any of the other girls that you met on the show while you were there? Like, how does that, can you? Like, I guess you can, right?
So after we broke up the second time, I had Annie out to...
That was the runner-up.
That was the runner-up, yeah.
Yeah, she's a smoke show.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. You really screwed up there. Sorry.
She's really
The
cool.
blonde was cute. She was good looking, but...
Annie's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I am not going to lie. Yeah, she is a great person. And so, yeah,
So she flew out.
Yep, hung out with her over Halloween.
Okay.
But yeah, that kind of all hit the fan because People Magazine found out about it. I don't know how they got hold of photos of us hanging out in Gallatin, Missouri, but they did. Then they posted an article of it. Of course, that article went back to Kala and all of her friends and family back in Texas. And then that was like, a few weeks after we had broken up for the second time. And so I was trying to lay low, and then People Magazine wrote an article about it, and then it just kind of blew up.
And in that, I would only assume then, Kala, was that her name? Mm-hmm. She reaches out. She's hurt. She's pissed. Probably. You got an earful. I got an earful. Andy got an earful. Everyone in the U.S. got an earful. So were you guys able to ever squash that, or did that pretty much seal the deal on that deal?
To be determined. It's an ongoing
to be continued.
Yes. Yeah, it's an ongoing ordeal. I'm just kind of.
And Annie, like, she came out and like you guys had a good time. She goes back to New York.
We had a lot of fun. Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm just.
And so those are the only two girls from the show then that you're still in communication with or considering.
I still talk to Carolyn, who was on Kurt's side. That was one Kurt talked to. Kurt's runner up.
Okay.
Just completely just friends. She's an awesome girl, like super awesome. And so we still talk, shoot, just about every single day. She came out with Annie to the farm. Yep. So those two came out. Yep.
All right. So let's get on here with what else Jenny has to ask. Maybe ask him what made him want to sign up for the show from the beginning. I guess we already answered that. I want to say he didn't know exactly what type of show it was going to be until it started airing. Ask him when the LS car wash is opening. I guess she's on top of that.
Yep.
When is it going to be opening?
Yeah, so that one, we're just about to break ground for the one that's down by Raintree Lake. So
right off 150.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, perfect.
Yep,
that'll be the hot. That's the one I need right there. Yep. I'll just pay you for the year membership right now.
All right, perfect.
Well, dude, I really appreciate you coming in. Is there anything I'm missing from the Joe Millionaire that you think would be fascinating or interesting to know from anybody who, like my sister-in-law, who is a hardcore reality dating TV show person?
I would say, the first night I get asked about this more often than not. There was a girl that I knew. And like the casting companies are supposed to vet everyone, make sure no one follows each other, that you don't know each other, especially in a show like this where the women aren't supposed to know which one of us is which. Mm-hmm. And a girl had lived in Nashville that I had met, and somehow she ended up on the show. And so the very first night when we meet all these women, mm-hmm. I walk out there to introduce myself, and under her breath, she goes, "I know him." And there's audio people listening to every single person's mic. And so they caught that. And this was at 1:32 in the morning. So they came and grabbed us all, separated us all, put us in separate rooms. And for about an hour and a half, I didn't know what in the hell was going on. And they came in and they're like, "Do you know this girl?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do."
So did you know her as being just somebody you met in Nashville or somebody you had prior?
Just hung out a little bit. And so nothing real serious. I just hung out. Mm-hmm. But because of the show and the concept of like, one of us is wealthy, one of us not, the girls don't know. They're like,
she knew.
Yeah. So they're like, "You got to kick her off." And I'm like, "But what do I tell her? Like, we just met. She has no idea what she did." Yeah. And they're like, "Just say that you recognized her and you came here to find true love and you want to just start with a clean slate." And so that's what I told her. And she's like,
and that was
bawling.
On the show?
Yeah. She's bawling for 20 minutes, like crying her eyes out because she just went through a 7-day quarantine and she's getting kicked off after being on the show for 10 minutes. And I'm like, "I don't know what to tell you. Like, you got to leave." And she's like, "But I don't understand. I don't, why are you kicking me off?" And it was awful.
Do you still talk to that girl?
Actually, yeah, we hung out in Nashville.
Do you talk to all of them? All of them? I mean,
no, like half of them.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, they're all really, really cool people.
Is there any of them that you absolutely like, "Oh boy, yeah, we don't need to know each other"? Did you have a bad experience?
No, there was no bad experiences. There's definitely some that are very, very city, like LA city. And I just don't talk to.
Yeah, I get it. That's really cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so you talked about, and I'm trying to be careful about how I say this. You talked about the next venture being something that was similar to Joe Millionaire. Mm-hmm. And I guess my question is, without getting into what that might be, is that a product of having that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Got me to the right people, the right connections, and, was able to broadcast who I am, who my family is, and what we may offer as far as being an on-camera personality.
Yeah. That's really cool, man. I really appreciate you coming in here, man. I feel like I could keep you forever, but I know you're a busy guy. We're coming up on 2 hours. And if you've listened, I've checked out your podcast, which we probably need to do that before we go. So let's touch on some of the plug your podcast.
Yep. It's Welcome to the Farm. Yeah. So we're on YouTube. We're going to be on all platforms here pretty quickly. McBEE Farms is our Instagram page. My personal Instagram page is Stephen McBEE. You can follow anything we do from my personal Instagram. So.
Right. And any of the other business ventures like the Apex. So how would they go?
Yeah. So go to my personal Instagram and you'll see the links to Apex, to McBee's Car Wash, to McBEE Farms, everything.
You got the link tree right there.
Yeah, I've got it all on mine. That's the easiest spot. That's the hub.
So just go follow Steven on his Instagram page. And
selfishly follow me first, then worry about the businesses.
Cool. And you're tagged out.
Yeah.
And so... Yeah. And then and is that really the only thing hunting wise that's your passion is whitetail?
Yeah, it is. I used to go on more trips back in the day, but I've been so busy, so I haven't been able to.
Never got into the waterfowl thing, huh?
Been a couple of times. Watched a lot of birds fly over my head. Spent 3 hours putting out the spread and never killed anything.
Really? Where were you? 3 hours you were hunting. You must have been throwing snow goose decoys.
Yeah.
Dude, don't do that. I'm the guy on the team, on the Heartland Waterfowl team, who gets made fun of because I am very emphatically against snow goose hunting.
Yep.
Because it's a high risk, high reward game.
Oh, man.
You put in a lot of work and they might do it. But when they do it, it's sick. And
amazing.
You got a tornado of thousands of them coming in. It's pretty ridiculous, man. Hey, dude, I tell you what, I again appreciate you being here. I respect you a lot. And I really appreciate your mindset. I appreciate your hard work, your dedication. And I think it's a testament to being, and this is going to maybe sound a little bit corny, but I think in the world that we live in, where there are so many individuals who think people like us, or you in this case, I probably shouldn't have put myself in your category because I'm not, but people who ever have success, they feel like it's just given to them. And I think that there's a world or an entitlement society that we live in where people don't want to work for something unless it's just working, unless it just is given to them. I think that there's probably some honesty to say that, you grew up in an environment where your dad had some success. And
Absolutely.
So you were fortunate enough to grow up with money. But that isn't to say that your success came because your dad gave you the success. You worked your ass off to get it.
Correct.
And I appreciate that so much. And I appreciate the fact that even when you launched the Apex thing and you had no idea what you were doing, and you're calling up what you thought was the small butcher up in northern Missouri or northeastern Missouri, and he's spending 45 minutes on the phone to help navigate you through the process. And had he not done that, you wouldn't be where you are today. Just all these little stories, and all of it is a product of you having a drive and a desire to accomplish something, and no is not in your vocabulary.
Absolutely. You'd be amazed at how many people are willing to extend a helping hand whenever you show the passion and the drive to want to do something.
And that's where I wanted to kind of end this episode with is that if there is somebody listening to this who is living the corporate lifestyle and they feel like that they are stuck and they feel like this is just the way life is supposed to be for them, it doesn't have to be. What do you tell that person? Like if you've got an idea, if you've got a drive, if you got something, then don't settle. You live in a country that gives you the ability to live the American dream. And if you've got the tenacity and the just the will to want to try and accomplish it, here's the first thing, and you said it on your podcast, you're going to fail. Mm-hmm. If you start something and you are I remember starting Heartland Waterfowl. Failed miserably several times. That doesn't mean the business failed. That doesn't mean that we had to hang it up and start all over from scratch. But I fell down many, 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 many times. Don't let the fear of failure stop you from getting started.
Absolutely. Yeah. Failure is really just a step in the right direction to learning what success is. You cannot have success without failure. It's literally a prerequisite. Like there's no way to find success. How could you reasonably expect to know something that you've never done before without a fail?
Right.
Just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And that's good advice for me because I really want to start this self-storage thing, but my fear of failure is stopping me from doing it. So I will talk more about that off the show, but I really appreciate you being on here, man. Thank you so much. We're going to wrap this up, episode 25 of the Papa Ron podcast. I want to thank a few people for being a part of the show. Of course, I want to thank Rick Hunter and Rich Donovan for helping produce the imaging elements of this show. I also haven't done it for a few weeks, but I want to thank Dakota Thurn and Quentin Verlinick for being a huge inspiration for me to do this podcast there with Marathon Media Management. Thanks again, Stephen McBEE.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Appreciate you being here, episode 25 of the Papa Ron podcast.
You've been listening to the Papa Ron Podcast. If you enjoyed this show, hit subscribe now and tell your friends on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, and other social platforms. To participate on the show, leave a message with your comments or questions by calling or texting 816-558-6389. That's 816-558-6389. Until next time, thanks for listening to the Papa Ron Podcast. Papa Ron Podcast.